I was the number one salesperson everywhere I went. I got locked up like maybe 10 times during those years where I was homeless and struggling in the streets. I don't know if I should be saying this, but I used to rob drug dealers. I used to sell drugs. It's not until I started doing sales where I went from 600 a month to 600 a week. You might be able to find someone who cares more about people than me, but it's gonna be really hard, especially in this business. Exciting. I get to start podcasting in the professional world of podcasters. It's been a long time coming. I've been behind the scenes, secretly building an empire. Started out inside Car Guys as an auto broker about 10 years ago. And since then, I've grown. I wanted to do something different than the brick and mortar dealerships that I've worked in my whole life. So I'll take you back to 2016 when I was working as a finance manager recently at Beverly Hills BMW, 2016, and then I started working as an auto broker for a company that helped customers buy cars at credit unions. So the credit union would send me customers that applied for an auto loan that didn't want to go to the dealership. This also helped the credit unions retain their customers from losing them to dealership financing. And I would save the credit union members as a perk a few $1,000s on their car purchase. We would get the car delivered to the credit union, and we would put a big red bow on it. The customer would sign the papers, and they would get to buy the car, save a few $1,000s, and they wouldn't have to go to the dealership at all. This was an exciting and fulfilling part of my life as a car dealer because I was no longer working at the dealerships, stressing the customers out, taking 4 to 8 hours to buy a car. And then as a finance manager, I got to deal with the customer at the end when they were already frustrated. They would vent to me. They would tell me how awful the experience is, how they had to wait 4 hours to see me and then spend another hour with me and another 30 minutes doing the delivery afterwards. Then my job as a finance manager was, it was pretty difficult. I worked 12 hours a day, and most of what I did wasn't part of my pay plan. It was just what I call free work. I got paid when I sold the customer products like warranties, tire and wheel, paint protection, gap insurance, basically products that were just printed on paper as an insurance in case something happened. I was relatively good at it, and I would make the dealership a couple $100,000 a month in selling those additional products on top of the money that they made selling the car. I got paid a small percentage of what I sold, anywhere from 10 to 12%, and it was a lot of paperwork. And I hate paperwork. That's one thing I don't like to do. So sometimes I would partner with another finance manager who wasn't as good as I was. I'd give them cash and I'd tell them, do my paperwork, I'll just do the sales. And that seemed to work out really good. So that was my life in the finance world at the car dealerships. I got tired of it because, I was stuck in an office for 12 hours a day, and it was a nightmare doing all the paperwork. I love being in front of customers. I love helping people. I love solving problems. And I actually got to work on the other side as a buyer instead of a seller. And that's what auto brokering did for me. It allowed me to take everything I've learned inside the business, hence inside car guys. And it allowed me to use all of the skills I became very good at as a salesperson against other salespeople and other sales managers who I knew weren't, half as good as I was. And I got to dominate them in the negotiating game. I got to crush them in their own game. And it became really fun for me. I got to talk to salespeople who never really tried to excel in their career. They just did the basics. And I can recognize them right away. These guys are low energy. They're not really trying. They're lazy. So I got to really take advantage of those guys, and I got to crush them in the negotiating game and make a great deal for the customer that hired me. And that actually ended up making me very popular. And I got a lot of repeat clients. I got a lot of referral clients and a lot of word of mouth. I didn't even have to do a lot of advertising. And everyone knew me as Marcus the car guy, inside car guys. And I became really good at that. Later on in my career, it was tough building my business and making consistent income. So I went back into the automotive industry, doing finance at like Toyota dealerships. Not really caring too much about selling for the dealer, but just having that inside scoop on what's going on to help my customers get better deals. And in my downtime, when I wasn't busy working on the dealerships, customers, I would broker cars out of my finance office and help customers through my business inside car guys. That became a good gig for a while, but then I started doing better at brokering than I was in my career as a finance manager, and I moved away from that and worked from home for about 1.5 years just as an auto broker. And then one day I had like 20 cars lying around and cars were getting towed. I had some at my girlfriend's house at the time. I had a few cars at my buddy's house. I had a couple cars on a dealership for a consignment. And I had like 6 or 7 cars in my townhome community parking lot. And they started to get towed or, they just were sitting there collecting dust. So what I did is I said, I need a space to store my cars. And I ended up finding the inside car guys location I have now, which can park over 100 cars. And I put all my cars there and focused on brokering, but it slowly evolved into becoming a used car dealership that it is today. Right now, we're currently the #1 used car dealership in Ventura County. We sell close to 80 cars a month. I've expanded. I've got 2 dealerships now and 2 service departments right next door. Currently sitting inside of one of the service departments, filming this podcast that I just remodeled. Looks beautiful. I'll give you guys some behind the scenes later. And I made it look really prestigious. It looks more like a doctor's office, I heard. Just a good look for people to walk in. My secret weapon is transparency and treating people like, their family. So I always try to take care of every customer like they're a family member. And I'm 100% honest and transparent about them with everything. They even know as much as how much money I'm making on the car. And I don't care if, I'm making a little bit or a lot. That's, my risk or reward for buying the car right or buying the car wrong. Some cars I lose money on as a dealership because I spend too much money on fixing the car. And I'm okay with that. It's a numbers game. At the end of the month, I'm going to take an average. If I sell 80 cars and, I make $1,000 per car, some cars are going to show $2,000 loss. Some cars are going to show $3,000-$4,000 profit. And I'm okay with that. So that's how I run my business. The money is made in buying the car more so than it is in selling the car. If you buy cars that are good cars and you work really hard at the auction, you work really hard to get customers to come in and sell you their cars, and you buy the car right, then you're going to make money on it. If I overpay for a car at an auction, I'm going to lose money on it. And I've come to accept that. What makes a good car purchase at the auction? I'm instantly visualizing something like a middle of the road, like a 2010 Lexus ES that's clean. Something I can buy for $8,000 and sell for $12,000. So the spread is $4,000. In between that, you have auction fees, transportation, detail, smog, safety inspection, and typically it's going to need some reconditioning, like valve cover gaskets, spark plugs, tires, maybe some interior repair, a little bit of paint, bumper or whatever. So I do a little bit of this, a little bit of that, make the car look nice and still make a couple grand on it. That makes a good car. I like those cars, Toyotas, Hondas, Lexus, Acura, because they are reliable. They don't have major problems. And the last thing I want to do is start selling cars that I can buy cheap, like let's say a Ford. And I don't want to pick on Ford. They make good cars, but they also make some really bad cars. For example, Ford Focus, Ford Fiesta, Ford whatever. They're notorious for bad transmissions. I try to stay as far away from those cars as possible. Same thing with Nissans. Nissans with the CVT transmissions are always going to fail. There's not a if it fails, it's when it fails. So I try to stay away from Nissan Sentras, certain Nissan Altimas. I try to avoid those cars because I don't want to sell those cars to somebody and they have an issue with it. A lot of the older Kias, the older Hyundais, I stay away from. They're not great cars. But even with that being said, you can find good cars in any brand. Nissan Titan, Nissan Frontier, those are good. Ford makes a lot of good pickup trucks. So does Chevy. I do know Chevy Silverado 2015 on up. They have really bad transmission problems. Same thing with the Suburban, the Tahoe, the 5.3 liter engine. They changed the transmission after 2015, and it's not having good reliability. So more often than not, if someone's selling me one of those cars and they got about 100,000 miles, my first question to them is, did you change the transmission yet? And sure enough, I bought one and the transmission was bad. So I had to put a new transmission in that costed around $3,500 to do so. So at the end of the day, some cars I need to buy $4,000 or $5,000 spread because I'm bracing for a $2,000-$3,000 repair bill when I fix the car. And then some. I mean, used cars is such a tough industry because customers can typically come in and almost all of them can find a lot of little things wrong with the car. And it's funny because, someone will come in on a $6,000-$7,000 car and tell me 5 or 6 little things. Oh, the visor's not working. The antenna's broken. The the paint on the door has a scratch, hoping that they can get $1,000 or $2,000 off the car. And I'm like, well, I'm only making $1,000 profit. What can I do? I can't discount the car, but you're welcome to go try to find another one that is much nicer, or you can use my auto broker service and let me buy you a brand new car, because then you don't have to worry about the little small things that are wrong. Meanwhile, I just put new spark plugs in the car, a new catalytic converter. I fixed the air conditioning compressor. I probably put a new engine or transmission in some of these cars, and they still want a discount. But I'm not like a lot of the money hungry dealerships out there that they will sell a car with a Band-Aid on it, hoping the customer doesn't know that it has certain issues, and then tell the customer it's as is and argue with them after they buy it. As a matter of fact, most car dealerships will never, ever spend any money after they sell the car. Customer buys the car, needs a new battery, they don't care. Needs a new engine or transmission, that's on you. And a lot of them will sell the car knowing that it's bad or it's going bad. Me, I'm 100% transparent. This car has a bad transmission. I don't want to sell it. But if I sell it, I'm selling it at half price, so you can buy the car and get a new transmission. Or I fix the car. Also, another thing that I do quite frequently is I fix the car after I sell it. Customer comes in, it needs an engine, needs a transmission, fine, I'll fix it. And if it costs me $2-3 guess what? I just made the customer's life so much easier. So what I've done the first year that I had my dealership, I was buying a lot of cheap bargain value cars. And if I knew the car had an issue, I would tell the customer up front, and I would tell them, this is why I'm selling the car cheap. If a customer came in, and this happened quite a bit, and I know because I do their credit application that they're making $2 or $3 a month, and they have to prove the income, and sometimes people get declined on credit applications because they don't have enough income. So they have to put down the most that they make, and unfortunately in this economy, still more than half of my customers make less than $4,000 a month. Some of them as low as $1,200 a month. And I see a lot of credit applications that the customer can barely afford to make the car payment. They've saved a lot of money, or to them a lot of money, for the down payment, $2,000-$3,000, $200 a paycheck for 10 checks. And I'm a human being at the end of the day, and so are the people buying the car. So when they buy a car and then the next week or next month they call me and they say my engine broke, or the transmission stopped working, or I got some major problem with the car, I know these customers well. I fix the car for them. Especially if I know that they're a humble human being, they're a hardworking human being. I feel like it's my duty, with the position that I'm in, to take care of these people, and I do that. And I could have made an extra $100,000 my first year in business. I think I made like 40-50 grand. And I could have made an extra $100,000 my first year in business, from the dealership side. And I didn't. I spent it on fixing cars after I sold them. It's either that or I buy the car back. And sometimes people overreact. It's really hard in this business to understand cars for the average person. I say the average customer that buys a car, they don't know anything about mechanics. And if the car doesn't start a week later, they freak out. Sometimes it's they left their headlights on. Sometimes it's the battery drained or the alternator stopped working. That only costs $150 for me to replace. If that customer takes the car to the shop down the street, they're going to charge them $200 just to tell them it needs an alternator. And then they're going to charge them another $900 or $600, whatever it is, to fix the alternator. For me, it's $150. I've already got mechanics on the payroll. It doesn't take that long to fix them. So for me, the right thing to do as a human being is to fix the car. I know it's super easy for me and there's no stress. For the customer, it's sometimes the end of the world. It's a big problem for them, a small problem for me. So I take on a lot of people's problems and I fix them, and it makes it kind of a fulfilling journey. You know, I'm not just selling cars and taking people's hard-earned money and telling them you gotta fix those problems on your own. I'm actually helping them solve their problems. So that's kind of a fulfilling way to give back. You know, speaking of giving back, one of the things I do is I partner with a local charity that gives cars away, gives free cars to kids who were in the system as a foster, adoption, group home, whatnot, and they age out of the system. So now they have no benefits. So they actually give cars to those kids at no cost. And a lot of the times they'll pick a car that costs $8,000 or $9,000 because they want them to have a decent car and their budget's $5,000. So I pitch in the other $4,000 or $5,000 needed to get that car. And basically it costs me at the end of the day, $3,000, $4,000, but it's so fulfilling to give back and to help kids out that are going through something that I once went through. Part of my origin story is I was emancipated at 16 years old. I was living on my own at 17. I was homeless also at 17 years old, till the age of about 19. Sleeping in abandoned houses, sleeping on friends' couches, concrete basement floors in the Midwest. I'd go 3-4 days without eating, although you couldn't tell that about me now. I used to be super skinny as a teenager. And, I got a 9th grade education. I went and got my GED because I wanted to join the Navy and become a Navy SEAL. I passed my ASVAB test, went through the background, was good to go, but they didn't let me in because of a childhood injury. At 9 years old, I got my foot cut under a lawnmower and it took half of it off. So because of that, they didn't let me in the Navy. And although I played basketball, I was boxing, I could run and jump, everything was normal. They don't play with the feet. That's one thing I've heard. So anyway, that was back in 2002. And around that time, that's when I started my career in sales. Before sales, I was doing labor, physical labor jobs. I was in great shape, but I was broke. It's not until I started using my mind, my brain, my charisma per se. I started using my personality and my people skills to sell. And that's what got me out of extreme poverty. Physical labor back in those days in the Midwest, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, the most I could make was about $600 a month take home. That's what I could make. That was the top of my income. I worked factory jobs. I worked fast food jobs. I'd work really hard physical labor jobs. And I was so broke, I couldn't even really afford to feed myself. It was tough. You know, I was a hard worker. I decided I wanted to work hard because I wanted to stay out of trouble. All of my friends that I had around that time, they've all spent a significant amount of time in jail or they're dead. The streets is brutal. I didn't think I was going to make it past the age of 25. I was already prepared to, not make it. I did some really stupid, dumb things. I don't know if I should be saying this, but whatever. It's my life. I don't care. It's not yours. I used to rob drug dealers. I used to sell drugs. I used to kick in doors of drug houses and with guns and other people and take guns and drugs and money from drug dealers. That was the lowest point of my life. I was also suicidal. I tried to take my own life at 16 when I was in the group homes and institutions. I went through an emancipation independent living program as part of me becoming emancipated. And for those of you that don't know what that means, emancipated means you're your own legal guardian. I had a really messed up childhood before that. My stepdad used to beat the shit out of me every day. My mom didn't care. Went through a lot of stuff, a lot of every type of abuse, basically. Don't want to get into that. This is just for context. Who I was then versus who I am now, two different people. Now I'm very successful. I do very well. And I think that because I went through everything that I went through, it gave me character, perseverance. It gave me a level of skills to understand people. Very street smart. And I have a very high EQ, which is just as important as having a very high IQ. My IQ is pretty good. It's not genius level, but I think I'm around like a 130, 135, according to the tests I've done. But my EQ is probably higher on that level. And the average person in the world, they have 90 to 100 IQ, 110. A good salesperson usually comes in around a 120. And then geniuses, I think, start at 150 or 160. But there's a lot of real world problems that a genius can't get out of. That's someone I understand in the middle of the road, like a 130, 135 IQ. Like I read an article once, like someone with a 135 IQ knows how to provide practical solutions and real life problems. Like they know what to do behind enemy lines in a war. They know how to execute a great bank robbery or, rob drug dealers and get away with it. They know how to make make their way out of a sticky situation, versus someone with a high IQ wouldn't be able to pull it off. And I know that because I know a few geniuses in my circle, and they wouldn't be able to do what I've done in my life. But I've come from the bottom of the bottom. I started behind life. I started in life behind the line, the starting line. And, of course, there's a lot of rich kids who go to Harvard and Yale and they become super successful. They get a very big advantage in life, and they get, set up right. They get to stay at home till they're 28, 30 years old. They get $1 million loan from their parents to start off their first business, etc. And then there's guys like me who claw my way up from the bottom, who come from nothing and make something of themselves. Granted, I'm not on the same level that some of these guys are, but I do really, really well for myself, and I'm living my dream life right now. So it's pretty amazing, everything I've accomplished in life coming from where I came from. 3-4 years old, my mom left my 2 older siblings behind, and we went to a homeless emergency shelter. And I was instantly the man of the house at 4 years old. And then, through different marriages in her life and different stepdads, I experienced every type of abuse you could think of. And I left home at 15. And that's where, my journey started as a individual. And that's what has given me the dexterity and the character that I have today, and anyway, going back, running in circles. 18, 19 years old, I was still homeless, but I was working a full-time job. The reason I worked so hard, what changed my life, is I didn't want to go to jail. I got locked up like maybe 10 times. During those years where I was homeless and struggling in the streets. I spent 2 years in a row, Christmas, New Year's, and I think my birthday's in jail. It sucked. I didn't want to be there. It's miserable. It's the closest thing to hell on earth, going to jail. And I was in there. Quick story. I like to share this one because I like to shed light on what happens in the system. 16 years old, I was going through the emancipation program. And I was in a group home. Staff member just started trying to be my buddy, trying to take me out, go on bike rides with me. It's kind of weird. I was like, why does this guy want to be friends with me so bad? And I got like the weird vibe from him that, he might have been more interested in me than friendship. So I kind of like, yo, bro, I don't want to like hang out with you type of vibe. And one day I come home to the group home and the guy is like, he's kind of, he took it personal and he's kind of like upset. So, like I don't want to be his friend. So he devised a plot against me. And he gets in my face. He starts like chest bumping me, like pushing me. And all I remember is him telling me to punch him. He's like, hit me, hit me. And he's chest bumping me. And he can see I'm getting really mad. And I want to punch him so bad, but the logic in my brain is like, you know what? Maybe I can just scare him enough to where he doesn't mess with me. And I turn and I punch a hole in the wall, full of rage and anger. And I look at him and I'm like, oh yeah, that did the trick, because then he runs in the room and locks himself in. And I hear him on the phone calling 911. And I was like, yeah, that scared him, you know. So I was like, yeah, that's right. You know, you better not come out. And I guess he's letting them hear that while I'm going off on him through the door. And the police show up. I'm a 16-year-old kid with a lifetime of trauma and abuse behind him. Emotionally, you know, messed up. So of course, I'm mad, and he triggered me, and I had an anger problem. And he tells the police I tried to punch him and I barely missed his chin, and that's how the hole ended up in the wall. So he's lying to the police, and I have an attitude. And I kind of got that, you know, fuck the police mentality. Excuse my language. So I kind of got that mentality. You know, I was kind of whatever. I thought I was a thug, whatever. And I was hanging out with those guys too, like the real thugs. So in Milwaukee, and actually that's where I was coming from, smoking weed with some like hardcore gangsters. And anyway, the police get there. They see I have this attitude. I'm in a group home, so I'm labeled as a group home kid, and I'm automatically the villain. They take me into the adult prison system at, I want to say 16 or 17 years old. And I go in and this is a Friday night. I don't get out till Monday. So I spend my first weekend in jail. It's overcrowded and it sucked. But you know, I'm kind of cool. I stay to myself. I'm watching and observing, and there's a lot of angry people in jail. So I see a lot of violence. But anyway, I get out a PR bond, personal recognizance bond. Fast forward a few months later, I go to court. My grandparents, who I went to stay with after the episode with my stepdad, they show up. Same grandparents that turned me over to the system and said, we can't raise you anymore. You were only supposed to stay with us for 2 weeks. And I ended up staying with them for 2 months. After my stepdad, you know, tried to kill me, beat the shit out of me one day. And my mom sent me to live with them so my stepdad could get out of jail. So same grandparents that said, you know what, we know you went through a lot, but we can't be there for you, buddy. So you're going to go to the group homes and institutions. Like DMX said in his song Slippin', group homes and institutions, prepare my ass for jail. So it's true. You know, I vibe with that song. That was one of my favorite songs I listened to over and over again growing up. So anyway, I go to jail. Fast forward 3 months later, my grandparents show up at my court hearing, and I get a public defender. The public defender just cares about getting this case off of her caseload as quick as possible. She's very convincing that this isn't going to end well if we go to trial. He's very adamant about going to trial. and the staff member from the group home. And my grandparents are agreeing with her. Take a no contest plea. 2 years probation, 60 days state sentence in jail. And part of me wants to fight this case. Part of me wants to go to trial, share my story. Like, this guy was provoking me. I didn't really do anything wrong. I had a class B or class D, whatever, misdemeanor for disorderly conduct charge. So I ended up taking the no contest plea deal and 2 years probation. It was so stupid. To this day, it really pisses me off that I did that and no one was there to support me. I think that's why I like the charity called CASA. I support them. It's called Court Appointed Special Advocates for kids in my situation that I was in, 25 years ago. I wish someone was there that, was on my side. My grandparents didn't want to bother with it. The public defender didn't want to help. And I took that, and I, sure enough, revocated my probation, ended up doing 60 days in the House of Corrections. It's in between jail and prison in Milwaukee. And it sucked. Time literally freezes in there. There's nothing to do. You look at the clock, hoping an hour went by. It's been 5 minutes. Do push-ups, work out, play dominoes. Wait for the 1 hour rec time every day. And there's really nothing to do but fight and get in trouble. And it's hard to pass the time. So I made a vow and a commitment to myself when I was in there. You know what? I'm done with this street life. I'm done trying to be a drug dealer, trying to be a gangster, a thug, whatever. I want to stay out of trouble. So I said, I'm just going to find a job and work 12 hours. I'd rather work 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, than have the free time to go to get into trouble and go to jail. And that's what started off my super strong work ethic. However, my work ethic was only good enough to make $600 take home a month. So my work ethic was only good enough to make $600 a month doing physical labor. It's not until I started doing sales where I went from $600 a month to $600 a week. And that was a game changer because I could rent an apartment for $500 a month in Milwaukee, or at least a rooming house, a room in a house that, used to be some sort of building or school or something, or church, I don't know, whatever it was. And you rent a room, you share a bathroom, and you get to, have your own place. It's like a door with a little room. And it's a shared community bathroom. It sucked, but it was something. I was no longer sleeping in my friend's basement on a concrete floor with a thin pad. So that was my first place. And I went from doing sales at the mall, selling photo sessions, 10 by 13 wallets, 10 by 13 picture with 17 wallets. For $10, I got to keep 8 of those dollars, and I'd sell 10 of them a day. I went from doing that to selling cars eventually. And selling cars is where it's at. I got to meet several individuals that didn't even go to college or dropped out of high school that was making $250,000 a year to $500,000 a year. And those were the guys I focused on. I didn't care about the ones that came in, they were making minimum wage. There's 80% of the car salespeople out there make minimum wage. I only cared about the ones that were making a lot of money. So I wanted to follow those guys as mentors. I was like, hey, man, maybe these guys can teach me something. Turns out most of those guys were sleazy. They weren't really like being honest to customers. They would tell the customer they're on a 6-month lease when they were on a 60-month finance. Little tricks like that. They'd lie to customers, lie, cheat, and steal. That's what gave the used car sales people bad names back in the day. So anyway, I didn't like that, and I never followed their tactics. I didn't lie to customers. I found a way to be creative enough with the facts to convince a customer that it was still a good deal. I didn't have to lie to customers. I just worked harder on explaining it to a customer in a way that it made sense. At one point I was like, I'm not a salesperson, I'm a sense maker. You know, the guy says he wasn't going to buy a truck because it didn't fit in his garage or whatever. I was like, well, you knew the garage was small when you bought the house. Like, you know, you can park the truck in the driveway. He's like, yeah, you're right. And you buy, you know, things like that. I just, you know, I became the number one salesperson by working harder than anybody else because I didn't want to go back to being homeless. That's what gave me an incredible work ethic. I would literally come in on every day off and work hard. I never stood around the dealership in one of those circle meetings where they all just trade stories and share stories and you know, one guy was always the popular of the group and everyone would stand around, listen to him and try to be cool with him. That guy would always talk crap about me, but I was on my third customer of the day before they even had one customer because I would bring the customers to me. Back in the day, I would go in the newspaper because there was no internet, and I would look for people selling their cars and tell them to bring the car in, let me appraise it, and trade it in. And I got a lot of customers that way. I would go to the service department while customers were getting their car fixed. And I would talk to them about maybe trading in their car, and I'd get customers out of there. I'd have 4 or 5 customers when half of the dealership only had one customer, because all they would do is wait for customers to walk in. I was a hustler. I was the number one salesperson everywhere I went. I worked harder and I worked smarter than any other salesperson. And I was able to avoid getting felonies, so I was able to, you know, become a salesperson. I quickly rose to the number one position at any store I went to. It was never good enough. I became the number one salesperson. Here I had to go to another store that was bigger and had more aggressive salespeople. And I had to become the number one salesperson there. I hated the politics in the new car dealerships. They suck. You walk into a store, you have to prove yourself. You prove yourself, and instantly, all the people there that were making good money hated you because you were going to mess up their gig. So they would sabotage you. They would talk trash about you, complain about you to the managers. They would steal your customers and steal your deals, unfairly steal your commissions. It sucked working at the new car stores. I probably lost more money than I made in commissions due to salespeople skating you, backstabbing you, taking your customers, cheating you out of a deal. I probably gave away more commissions than most salespeople made by splitting deals with other salespeople. But it's okay. I was my own economy. I went into a dealership. I generated more business. One thing that was always true is if I walked into your dealership was going to break records. It was going to break records in sales. It was going to break records in volume, gross, you name it. I was my own force. I sold more cars. I added. A lot of salespeople might come into a dealership nowadays and they'll sell 20, 30 cars, but they're taking out of the pool. You know, if the dealership sells 100 cars, they still sell 100 cars. They're stealing from other salespeople, or they're taking from those salespeople. If I walked into a dealership that sold 100 cars and their best month was 110, they would sell 120, 130 with me there because I was generating my own business. When I became a sales manager or a closer or a finance manager, I would always beat their top person at that store. So if the top closer was selling 60, 70 cars a month, I'd come in and in the second or third month, this guy who hasn't been beaten for 7 years at this Toyota store, Jim Pavone. If you ever see this, man, I love you, bro. But you know, I kicked your ass and you loved me for doing it. You haven't been beaten in 7 years, and I beat you my second month there as a closer. And everybody knew who I was. And at first, people would hate me or hate on me. They became my biggest fans. John Unruh, he works for me now. He was the #1 internet sales manager, never got beaten. I beat him my second month in internet sales. Finance manager. I'd go into a store that would struggle to do $1,200 a copy. I would do $2,000. The last dealership I went to, I'd make $4,000 per copy profit at a Toyota store. I was that good. And I didn't lie, cheat, or steal. Never had to. So I became really good at this business. And the better you do, they always cut you. So they always cut your pay plan. They always cut your money. They take from you. So most dealerships say, oh, you don't need to make more than 10, 12, 15 grand a month. If you're making 20, 25, they change your pay plan next month. And they raise the bar. They extend the carrot on the stick, you know. So it sucked, you know. And it was unfulfilling. I was working harder and harder to take people's hard-earned money for the dealerships. It sucked. You know, they would praise you. They would celebrate you if you made a lot of money on a customer. There's this guy on TikTok. I think his name's Kenny Sells or whatever. He's being ridiculed right now because he made a post on TikTok on overcharging a single mother $10,000 on a Honda. Everybody hates him. He's being canceled right now. And I guess he thought that was cool to post. He actually made it to the news. Milwaukee and Chicago, he was on the news for posting it on social media. And what's crazy, this is what's crazy, Behind the scenes, you do that. This happens all the time, by the way. He's not the first one or the only one that's done something like this. This happens every single day in the car business. And they celebrate you. They high five. They, oh my God, this guy, and 10 grand's nothing, man. I've seen people make $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, especially during the COVID markup. Everybody was making 10 grand over. Everybody. And they'd celebrate it, and they'd talk like you are the best. They'd praise you. So I guess the guy, what his mistake is, he went looking for praise outside of his circle, and that outraged the community. But I was never a fan of it when I worked in the car business. Salespeople would make 20, 30 grand sometimes over sticker price. Now, granted, most of the times it wasn't on a single mother. It was on someone who was making 50 grand a month or 100 grand a month that could afford to pay, 20 grand over on a Toyota Sequoia Pro or Toyota Tacoma TRD Pro or whatever. The new Corvettes, when they came out, were 50 grand over. It's a very common thing to sell cars over sticker. It sucks when you take advantage of hardworking people who don't make a lot of money. The number one trick dealerships do is they don't close you. They don't tell the customer the total price of the car. They don't tell them, here's the MSRP, here's what we're selling it to you for. They avoid that. They try to close the customer on a comfortable monthly payment for them. And, if a single mother goes into a Honda dealership and she could have gotten that minivan for $399 a month, but they sell it to her for $799 a month, and she can make the payment because she gets approved. Likely they'll lie on the customer and come to the bank. I've seen that happen a lot of times, and that's probably what they've done on most of those deals. Oh, this customer makes $5 grand a month when they make $3. And the customer really wants the minivan, and they convince her that, hey, you're paying, or they switch them from a finance where it was going to cost $800 a month to a lease where it cost $700 a month. And that's how they get them. They could have paid $399 a month. And they think, oh, a lease is $100 a month cheaper, but they mark the price up 10 grand. They lie to the bank about their income, all these dirty little tricks that car salespeople do. Managers are all in on it. The owners and the GMs pretend like they don't know, but they know. At the end of the month, it's always the same goal. Put as much money on the books as you can. Those situations like that is what inspired me to become an auto broker. And there's this popular kid. His name's Tony, I think. He goes by Driven. He does what I used to do, charge people $1,000 to negotiate a good deal for them. And he's becoming very popular on the internet. I used to do that. Now I focus mostly. I still do that. I will still do an auto broker deal, but that's not my main focus. My main focus right now is buying, selling, fixing, and, accessorizing cars. So that's what I do. I own 2 dealerships, 2 repair shops, and now a detail, PPF, tint, ceramic coating. I love it because it's more interactive with customers. I get to touch, feel, drive, see the cars. I used to do the auto brokering, and it was all over the phone, all over the country. And it was kind of like work from home. That's cool, but I'm more of a hands-on, type. I still do auto brokering, and I'm really good at it. And I charge $1,000. I mean, that's my model. I started 5 years ago. I started charging people $1,000 to negotiate a deal for them. And I used to do really well. I mean, we would, do 50, 60 deals a month. And it started to work really well. That's what segued me into becoming a used car dealer, because I knew I could make money on trade-ins. And I started buying trade-ins and collecting trade-ins. And that's where I got to my 20 cars, and I needed a place to store the cars. So that's how I went from becoming an auto broker to starting a used car dealership. And that's my origin story. That's who I am. That's what made me who I am today. I can tell you this. You might be able to find someone who cares more about people than me, but it's going to be really hard, especially in this business. Most people in this business, they don't care about people. They don't have, they're sociopaths. They don't care about a customer. They're not authentic. They just want to make as much money as possible and move on to the next. Me, I do it all. I make good money because I care about people. I sell a lot of cars because I care about people. I do better in this role because I'm transparent, because I'm fair, because I want it to be a win-win situation. I want them to win. I want to win. I want them to get a good deal, and I want to make some money. And I want to be number one. I want to sell the most cars. Right now, I'm number one in Ventura County. I have a dealership in Ventura City, and I have a dealership in Thousand Oaks. And I sell the most cars for a used car dealership. And I guess I'm a group now. I have 2 dealerships, so I guess it's considered a group. I sell more cars than any other used car dealership can sell out here. That number's really low for me. It's 60 to 80 a month. I want to get to 100, which I'm working on. And then I want to move into LA. I used to work in Los Angeles. I know the market. It's way more fierce and competitive than it is out here. And I'm prepared for that. And my next goal is to be the number one used car dealership in Southern California, then the United States. Not counting things like CarMax, right? I don't think I'll ever be able to beat CarMax because they're so far ahead. But I do want to be the number one independent dealer, used car dealer group in the United States. And I think I'm going to make it before 2030. I'm already doing my 5-year goal in year number 3. Year number 2, it's 2.5 years. And I'm already on my 5-year goal. So my 10-year goal I'll do in the next 5. I'm super hyper competitive. I want to be number one, and I will be number one. It's a lot of work. It's mind-boggling. Like this would shred most people. Most people can't do what I do. Most people can't solve the problems that I solve. Most people can't hang with me. I've hired a lot of so-called managers and GMs and whatever. Those guys can't hang with me. They all lie on their resume. Their resume looks beautiful compared to my resume because I don't really care. And they can't hang with me. They can't do what I do. I really don't have any external competition. It's just inside, and I'm becoming better and better every day. My world's expanding. I am becoming really good at what I do. And I'm becoming more successful. Obviously, that comes with growth. And I'm becoming more diverse. I mean, right now, I am the best used car buyer, and I've never been a used car manager. I've created some of the best processes and systems. I've refined them. I've created the best structure, the best atmosphere. I've recruited some of the best people in my industry. I've trained people that's never been in the car business, and they're now better than anybody else's crew. My crew that I'm developing is really good. What sucks is when I hire another used car manager or salesperson from the outside, and they're not what they say they are. They overpromise and underdeliver. They say they're good, and they're really horrible, especially the guys that come from corporate stores. They're used to hiding behind the chaos, hiding behind the noise, looking busy, politically gaslighting the managers, being buddy-buddy with the manager, and getting by being very lazy. They don't have the work ethic it takes to be in my world. So a lot of people think they're good, and they come in, I pull their cards, and they suck. I've had more managers come in thinking that they were going to be amazing, and they just know how to sell themselves. They don't have the dexterity, the perseverance, the tenacity, the problem-solving skills, the reasoning skills. And, I have to let them go, or they're all talk and no action. So it's a special group that can do what I do. And I'm looking for future leaders. I'm looking for future partners in this business that can make a difference, that can solve the problem, sell the car right, not lie to customers, actually put in the work it takes to be a manager and future inside car guys. It's really hard to find these people. It's tough because most of these guys are lazy. That's why they get trashed when they get exposed. And most of the lazy salespeople and sales managers don't like me. But the really good ones that earn it, that do really well in this business, they respect me. They like me. So I can always tell, And it's so easy to play politics at the new car stores and the groups. But it's not easy to do what I do. And it's not easy to build it the way I built it. Most people wouldn't have started a car dealership without a lot of money behind them. I started the car dealership with almost no money. I just worked. I put in the sweat equity. And now I've built a very successful, established business. So, all right. So at what point did I know I was going to be successful? Listen, I've started several companies over the years. Tried several businesses. I always came back to the car business, and Inside Car Guys, the name, the company, the brand, it started about 10 years ago. There was probably 3 or 4 times I should have given up. Most people would have given up. 3 or 4 times I thought, I tried. and I had to start over. There was probably actually a dozen times where I thought the company wasn't going to continue to be a company. I've had a lot of disappointments, a lot of failure, a lot of fails in my path to get to where I'm at now. But at what point did I know the company was going to be successful? I almost got to say I knew that from the beginning. Even though there was so many setbacks and times where, the average person would have given up, you have to have this delusional quality, this delusional grandeur. I don't know if that's the right word. You have to have this delusional quality that you're going to be successful. If you're ever going to start a business, you have to know you're going to be successful. And you have to know without a doubt. And you have to take failure and you have to eat it. And you have to push it down and say, okay, all right. The only time you fail is when you give up. You can fail over and over again, but if you keep trying, you're going to be successful. And for me, that's exactly what happened. I could have taken the first time or the second time or the third time where this didn't work, this didn't work, this didn't work. Even the worst, almost the worst time I given up is I was working at Santa Monica Maserati as a finance manager. I was working my auto brokering side hustle in 2019. And this guy calls me that I worked with before, and he says, hey, I got this opportunity to start up a used car dealership. I don't know how to start it up or run it, but you know how. Let's be partners. I have all the paperwork, all the licenses, everything set up. You don't have to bring in any money. You don't have to do any paperwork. I hate paperwork. I hate red tape. But I was like, okay, cool. I'll come in. I'll build the company. I'll start the dealership. And it's half mine. I'm okay with partners as long as it's fair. And I did just that. I came in the first 3 to 6 months. I started the dealership. And I worked my ass off. The guy was nowhere around. He was taking vacations. He was off messing around with this other company that wasn't successful. I built the company from scratch. I took my Inside Car Guys brand and my brokering, and I channeled it all into that dealership. And I got that dealership up and running. And talk about getting your ass kicked, man. This guy was a sleazeball. We'll talk about him later. I don't want to put him out there like that, but it's a real slimy guy. A lot of people are in this business, and that's why I started Inside Car Guys, because I want to be the inside guy and help people against guys like this and these sickos that work at the new car stores that are all about being greedy and over killing the profit, just overcharging people. So anyway, got the dealership up and running. I had nothing in writing. My name wasn't on anything. And, his dream was to make 40 grand a month and split that. And I was like, dude, I'm already making 30, 40 grand a month. I don't need to come in and split that and make that. I was like, we'll make 100 grand and we'll split that. And sure enough, the first month we made like 80 grand. He gave me 20 grand and told me, oh, this is what you earn, blah, 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 BS. And then he started, pushing me out of the business. I was like, what a son of a gun, man. This was like, it was heartbreaking, man. It was devastating. Pushed me out, and, I became jobless. I was barely broke and depressed. And it took me a few months to, get over that. I built a dealership. It was running. It was successful. This guy was profiting from it all. But he was such a sleazeball, I didn't want to be his partner anyway. The guy would lie to everybody. He'd tell a salesperson he's going to pay him a $500 commission, give him $200. Salesperson comes to me complaining. I'm like, dude, just pay him. Like you said, you're going to pay him, pay him. He'd cheat his vendors. He cheated everybody. And he's just a total scumbag. And I didn't want to be any part of what he had going on. He was so greedy and almost for no reason. There was enough money there. He just didn't want to, he wanted to cheat people and make more profit from cheating, lying, and stealing than working hard. So he wasn't my type of guy anyway. But I built this successful operating platform for him, which he copied all of my secret ingredients and took all my processes. And he kept it. And, that devastated me. I was depressed for like 3 months, man. I didn't want to get out of bed. I had nothing. I started over, got Inside Car Guys back up and running. I took the traffic that was pointed towards his business. I took it back. My website was pointed towards his business. My leads were his leads. He took all of my customer base. And, even after I quit years later, people were still coming in asking for me. It was crazy. I built his business. And I just focused on building Inside Car Guys again and became a very successful auto broker. And then got a used car dealership. Now I sell 3-4 times as many cars as he does each month. He's still in business. Not too far away from me. I think he calls himself 101 Auto Group or something. I don't know. I don't care. But the guy is, he's miserable. He lost all of his cars. He got behind on his flooring line of credit because he, does how you do anything is how you do everything. So his creditors didn't like that. They took all his cars. And he had to change his name and put the dealership's name in his buddy's name, and that's karma for you. And now he does things very, very carefully, and I think he sells 20 cars a month. I don't know, maybe. And he's happy with it because he makes his little 20, 30 grand, whatever he makes a month. And, he does a lot of scams with whatever, and it makes money that way. So good for him. Karma's eventually going to catch up to him and he won't exist. And I'll continue to be successful and do well because I do things the right way. And I don't care about money. All I care about is being successful. And I don't even need to make money right now. I just need to build the foundation and it'll make its own money. But, if you have to ask, I do okay. I'm doing all right. It always finds me. Back when I started the brokerage, I used to start working deals without even trying to make money, and somehow I'd end up making $1,000 or $2,000 on every car deal. And it's like, wow, I didn't think I was going to make any money on this deal. But something amazing happens when you save someone $4,000 or $5,000, and you still find a way to make $1,000. It's pretty fun. It's fulfilling. The customer wins because he saves a lot of money. You win because you make a good commission. The dealership wins because they sell a car. It's a win-win-win situation. It's the best way to be in life. When you win, I win, they win. Win-win-win. Everybody wins. And that's the best way to be, versus a win-lose. Like that guy, he's all about win-lose. He wants to win and you lose. And he's always trying to beat somebody, always trying to beat them out of money or beat them out of their hard work or beat them out of their commission, whatever. And he hasn't grown. If anything, he's contracted. He's shrunk. He's went down in life. But, good for him for, hanging in there. I don't know how much longer he'll be around, and eventually I might buy his or take over his location. So, so anyway, that's it, man. You got to have a delusional quality that you're going to be successful. And if you keep trying, eventually you're right. I mean, you're going to be successful. All right. Anyway, let's call it a wrap for today. I'm going to get back to work, and we're going to see how this podcast turns out.